Welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Vanessa Rose. Thank you so much for tuning in to join us again today for another great edition. Today we are joined by Brad Auten, and he is the chaplain at Fellowship Square, which is a Christian senior care facility here in the Valley. As a matter of fact, in the whole state, they have 5 locations ranging from the Valley up to Cottonwood and down to Tucson. They are doing wonderful things for our seniors. We had the opportunity to go and visit them. We'd love to show you a little bit of what we saw. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to discuss this with Chaplain Brad.
Christian Care Fellowship Square has been in the Valley of the Sun for over 30 years. It's a not-for-profit retirement community, and it's just a wonderful community. The seniors we serve are amazing. Working with them is such a blessing. You learn so much from them every day, and so a lot of times it feels like they give to us more than we give to them.
I've been with Christian Care for 12 years now, and the work is so fun because these people are people of faith, and they inspire me each day as their chaplain to go on with this work. Our mission statement starts with, motivated by Christ's love and concern, we strive to provide the housing and the health care and the hospitality services for our seniors. And this is a mission. This is a wonderful mission, and so many people have come to help us. Right now, I have 5 intern chaplains working with me, and so if I have to be away, sometimes they can attend to some of the things that happen. I go on hospital calls. I lead about 4 Bible studies here, and of course visit with people in their rooms. And it's such a wonderful inspiration.
We are a Christian community. We have chaplain services on every campus, and our chaplains are wonderful. Our chaplain here in Phoenix says we serve all faiths and no faiths, so everyone is welcome. They are here to help residents in their time of trouble, provide encouragement, maybe even in the hospital or end of life stages. It's nice for our residents to know that they have that spiritual support system here.
It's such a joy to work with seniors. Our seniors are wonderful people with great minds and wonderful memories and the greatest stories of America.
I hope that you enjoyed that little clip that we just showed. We had the opportunity to go down and visit, and I have to tell you that being at the facility truly is a blessing to see how happy, wonderful, fulfilling lives each and every one of these precious seniors are living. Chaplain Brad, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Such a pleasure to have you here today, and I've had the opportunity to go down and see you teach some of your classes and interact with these lovely, wonderful seniors, men and women, and just would love to know a little bit more first about yourself before we get into speaking specifically about Fellowship Square.
Well, thank you very much. I grew up just a mile and a half north of here at 34th Street in Indian School.
Oh my goodness.
Went to Camelback High School,
wow.
So I'm a native.
Wow, that's rare. Every time I get one on here, it's amazing. There's not too many, so that's a great thing.
And you've said a lot about my chaplain work. I'm married to Mary Ann. She's a counselor at Paradise Valley Community College. We have 2 children, Bethany and Andrew.
Oh, how wonderful. Is she a native as well?
She was born in Vermont. She came here when she was 2, so we count her.
So she's pretty much a native then, yes.
Right.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Chaplain Brad, for being here and for taking your time to share with our viewing audience. As a matter of fact, many of our viewers are precious seniors and are believers and have been watching our network for a very long time.
Wonderful.
And so if you wouldn't mind giving a little bit of history about Christian Care and Fellowship Square and how it began all those years ago here in 1979.
Well, it's an amazing thing because it was the dream of several ministers from Sunny Slope Christian Church and First Christian Church. They got together and they said, we can do a better job with health care for our seniors. In 1979, they broke ground and built a 60-bed healthcare facility, a skilled nursing facility at 19th Avenue and Cactus.
Wow.
And from that has grown this organization. They probably had no idea in their minds at the time of what would happen. HUD buildings came up, buildings that give special rates to seniors who don't have the funds to afford a full housing. but then assisted living, and finally the different levels in assisted living, and the memory care unit also.
How wonderful. And so you have 5 locations here with another one on the way.
That's correct. The one in Phoenix is at 19th and Cactus. We have 2 in Mesa. One in Tucson. That's our largest organization. Almost 700 people live at that particular community. And one in Cottonwood. The new one is in Surprise. It's at where Bell Road and the 303 meet.
Oh, wonderful.
So,
okay. There's probably a lot of need in that part of the valley then.
Yes. Sun City's right there.
Yes, yes, it is. And so tell me about being chaplain in this. What does it mean to be a chaplain at Fellowship Square, and what is some of the work that you're doing with these individuals?
So one of the first things is that being a chaplain, we are the visiting pastor. When we go into their room, it is their faith, their background that is the most important thing. We have our faith, but it is respecting each of our seniors from their own background. And of course, all the different levels of care make us work in so many different ways. For instance, when we're in the memory care unit, we are trained by our activities directors. Certain questions you don't ask, but there are certain questions that are quite all right. And we have a great time in our memory care.
How wonderful. Yeah. And being chaplain, you teach some classes. As a matter of fact, I got to sit in on one of your Bible studies, and I remember almost everyone had their Bible whenever you started reading, and I didn't bring my physical Bible with me that day. A lot of times I use my iPad, and one of the sweet women sitting behind me just couldn't have that, and so she handed me her Bible to read along with everyone, and she shared with another woman. And so this is something that it seemed very important and very meaningful to some of these seniors.
Oh, definitely. Many different backgrounds, but when we bring out the Bible, they are all very attentive, want to listen to hear God's word. And it's just a wonderful thing to be in a situation like that, where you have all the diverse groups and you're teaching from the Bible. And right now I'm teaching on the 10 Commandments, and they are absolutely loving it. I'm teaching the 10 Commandments as God's way of freedom. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. What do we expect? Commands about freedom. And the 10 Commandments are really for our freedom.
Absolutely, they are. And in teaching this about the 10 Commandments and working and praying with these individuals, tell me about some of the struggles that some of these seniors are facing that maybe someone would identify with that's at home watching, or maybe they have never personally dealt with this or had a family member or close friend that entered this part of their life. What are some of the struggles that they face with that you're able to assist them with?
Thank you. Number one is healthcare. As we age, our entire body ages and things can start going wrong. And of course, eyes and ears and all these different parts of our body are aging. And so to be with them at the time when something happens, when they fall and break a hip or their eyes are failing, to be that person that supports them with Christ's love, mercy, and compassion. That's what we do as chaplains.
That is wonderful. And so there at Fellowship Square, you have some veterans groups. Tell me about those.
Well, it's a great story because almost every veteran, almost everyone is World War II veteran. Once in a while, a Korean and very seldomly a Vietnam veteran will come in. And so these were the men and women who went across the world and secured freedom for us in so many ways. When I was in Jerusalem at the Western Wall and I put my hand on the wall, I remembered our veterans who did that for us.
Yes. Yes, they were, and they sacrificed so much. And unfortunately, sometimes people can forget, and they probably don't receive a lot of the respect that they should have. And that's something that you are doing there at Fellowship Square. You are giving them their respect and their dignity that they so deserve.
That's job one, respect. And if a young person really wanted an education, just come down and sit at our tables.
Yes.
And have a meal with one of our residents. It's or 5 of them.
Yes, absolutely. And that's very true. You can. You allow people to come and volunteer and to spend time with them. And I have to tell you, that's one thing growing up, my mom would always bring me to different nursing homes or to senior centers. And it's one thing my brother and I were instilled with very young is how much wisdom there is there. And it's so it's so enjoyable, and I think that's something this generation that many people have forgotten is many of these people have lived for decades before we ever were a glimpse in our mother or father's eye. And
Right.
they've seen things in our world, such as World War II, and things that we will never experience firsthand today.
And this makes them such a solid group. They went through the Depression and the war together. They did everything together. We had an event that celebrated victory, Total Victory Day. 3 of the ladies in the room, there were 60 in the room, 3 of the ladies were in Times Square when the announcement came that there was total victory.
Oh my goodness, what a small world.
Yes,
I bet
it
that
is.
was such a neat level of connection for them.
Oh, it was.
To be able to share. Oh my goodness. I have to say, whenever I went there, and you have the breaking of bread that happens
Yes.
every Wednesday, and they all sit together and have some tea and or some water and have some bread. And I remember just sitting there, and I started asking them questions. I could have sat there just for 2 or 3 hours and listened. I was there for probably about an hour and got to hear them just share some of their stories of life and of moving and of romance.
Sure.
And just asking many of the women that I spoke to were had been married over 40, 50, 60 years. It's something that I think we can learn from a lot in this
definitely.
generation.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, so please tell me then a little bit further about your Story Corps then.
StoryCorps is a website and an app on the phone. And you see the picture, and then you hear the audio. We have 26 stories, plus a special Pearl Harbor. On Pearl Harbor Day, this was the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. And our residents knew exactly where they were when Pearl Harbor happened. And so we went through all of that. So there's another 15 or 20 stories there. So about 45, 50 stories are up on the internet, stories of our residents. To love someone, you really need to hear their story.
Yes.
And part of being chaplains is to hear the story of life. And we have stories about war. We have stories about reading in the public library for the children in Cincinnati. There's just all sorts of stories on StoryCorps. And 2 of the stories came right out of our memory care unit.
Oh my goodness. And where can people find these stories then?
Go to storycorps.me, browse Fellowship Square, and the stories will come up. Click on the lead article, the article under the picture, and the story will begin to play.
Oh, how wonderful.
And they're great stories.
They are. I've actually listened to a couple of them, and they really are beautiful. And it's something that comes from a time, whenever we all end up in that position where we're in our senior years, it will be very, very different stories.
Definitely.
And so I think it's so beautiful to be able to learn and to hear this part of history that we will never relive, because history will always change and be interchanging.
They've lived 1/3 of the history of the United States.
Wow.
Think about that.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that really is amazing. That goes to show you how much wisdom there is to just
Definitely.
sit and listen.
Definitely.
Oh my goodness. And the neat thing is they all want to share.
They do.
They do. They
do.
want to share about their lives and where they've been and what they've seen and what they've done.
It's true.
And so being chaplain, you do hospital visits.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that experience.
So some of the most holy moments for a chaplain is when he or she walks across the threshold of a hospital room. We know that a person may be suffering behind that door. And to be with them at that time, to access their faith and let them speak out to God. Because, sometimes when we're hurting, we speak out to God very plainly. And you always get more than what you give out. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling to know that when you go in to minister, that you are actually being ministered to also.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure that you've had some beautiful experiences then going in, and
Sure.
probably not only with the seniors, but with their families and friends.
Definitely. I do work with the families, and it's such a wonderful thing, because I'm about the age of their children.
Yes.
We call them children, but
That's true. No, it's absolutely true.
It is
And so
true.
there's
We're all
probably
children.
there's probably a very big relatability there, but with those people that you're
Definitely.
able to share with them. And I'm sure that, with your own personal experiences, your family and things, that's something that can be brought into that experience.
definitely.
And so you being a chaplain and going in and doing this, is there opportunities for other people to volunteer and to if someone's at home and they want to get involved somehow, and they've maybe always had a little bit of a feeling or a desire or calling to do some charity or to do some volunteer work with seniors, what are ways that people can get involved with that?
So there are a number of ways. Our activities we have so many activities. If you looked at the calendar, you would say it might be hard to do all those activities.
Yeah.
And our activities directors are just wonderful. And so helping with activities, I have actually 5 interns who are helping me in the ministry. 3 of them are formally in chaplain training, clinical pastoral education.
Wow, okay. And so people can come and just contact the organization, and they can come and help their visit or help do things at the facility.
Yes, and we have a volunteer coordinator. Jackie Owens is her name.
Okay.
So.
Wonderful. So that way people can get involved. And as far as people that might be seniors and might be coming to that point where they're ready to have some sort of facility living, senior care, what is the best way for people to find out about that? If someone's at home watching and they're at a point in their life where maybe they don't have any children here locally or anyone to help, and they need to kind of start that process.
Yes, it is a community of joy. Let me emphasize that, because so many times we think that, oh, this is a place that's everybody's old. No, it's not about the number. I might mention a few numbers a little bit later, but it's not about the number. It's about how the person relates to you. And they can contact our main number there at Fellowship Square. And the marketing, we have 4 marketing people that can help them find the right situation. And of course, the appropriate level of care is a big thing between independent, assisted, or full nursing. This is so important that each individual gets the appropriate level of care.
Absolutely. And I can tell you that it's not a place that you walk in and it doesn't feel like, maybe some people have this idea. For some time there was nursing homes that were, drab and
Sure.
dark, and there wasn't joy or life in there. I walked in and everyone is happy and enjoying themselves, and it's beautiful. And I have to tell you, even sitting around the table, I know that they had other activities to go to. We probably would have sat there another 3 hours and just chatted, and they're just they're also full of life and enjoying life.
Sure.
And enjoying one another. Well, I would like to take one quick little break, a little PSA and a little information about Fellowship Square, but then we will be right back, Chaplain Brad, and continue speaking about the wonderful things that are happening over there, okay?
Sure.
And thank you so much. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Christian Care Fellowship Square has been in the Valley of the Sun for over 30 years as a not-for-profit retirement community.
Our mission statement starts with, motivated by Christ's love and concern, we strive to provide the housing and the health care and the hospitality services. It's such a joy to work with seniors. Our seniors are wonderful people with great minds and wonderful memories, and the greatest stories of America.
We hope that you enjoyed that short little video about Fellowship Square. And of course, if you have any more questions, information, whether it be for yourself or for a family member, whether it be to volunteer, we absolutely want to encourage you here at Joy in Our Town to get out and put some boots on the ground and do God's work, and to be part of these organizations that are doing so much in our valley to help all different types of people. This organization in particular is helping our wonderful, wonderful seniors that have given so much to our community and to our state and to our country, to our history. And now it's time to give a little bit back to them. But thank you so much, Chaplain Brad, for staying with us here. And one of the harsh realities of your work is that, we all come to an end in our life, and that is something that will always happen.
Definitely.
Sitting in one of your services there, you spoke specifically about grief and how it's okay to cry, and how it's okay to allow yourself to hurt. Speak to me a little bit about grief recovery and what that looks like from your perspective, and also as an encouraging note for, like I said, many of our viewers are seniors, and maybe they have a loved one or a friend that they've lost, or a spouse or someone that's been close to them.
Sure.
About that grief recovery.
Sure. The Bible says we grieve, but not as those without hope. Grief recovery really helps us understand some of the misconceptions we have about the hard things in life. Any loss that a person experiences as at 100%. Our faith can help us, but knowing what is not an appropriate response is so important. He's in a better place. The leaves on the trees fall. These are cliches that do not help because they speak to the mind and not to the heart.
Yes.
And so to hear the story from the person that's grieving is such an important part. And sometimes it's hard to sit there and hear the story because it's painful not just to the person telling the story, but to the person hearing the story. But it is listening to that story as a listening heart that can produce grief recovery.
Absolutely. And so it's important to encourage people to allow the natural cycle of grief to happen.
Yes.
There is no time limit on it. There's nothing like that.
No. That's one of the myths of grief. Time heals all wounds. We have two of our chaplains who are grief recovery certified, and they have a number of our residents that are going through this. As we age, more things can happen. A child can die. A grandchild can die. These are tremendous grief events for our people, and to help them through this time with grief recovery is such an important part of our ministry.
It absolutely is. And I'm sure seeing that, like I mentioned when I was there, I remember seeing that so many of the women that I spoke to, a lot of their husbands had passed because women typically live longer than men,
Yes,
correct?
Joe, yes.
And so we, as we were speaking, they were married over 40 or 50 or 60 years. That is a huge mountain of grief to get over to
Definitely,
someone that's almost your whole life for many of these people. They were with them since they were so young.
Yes.
So what are some of the steps that people can go through to help them with that type of grief? Well,
we just did a service for a lady who was married to 71 years. Her husband survives. He lives with us. A wonderful family. They lived their life in Christian service for 15 years. They drove south of Mexico City and helped the natives there, understanding how to grow food, raise animals, cook with solar ovens, just spent their lives in this ministry. And so as I was speaking about this dear saint, I said, she's more than the conquerors in the world that we know. She put people back together. Conquerors tear us apart.
Yes.
But as a Christian servant, she put people back together. She mended their hearts through the love of Christ.
Wow. And now her husband is still here.
Yes, he is. And so we are working, and we can do a one-on-one grief recovery program if a group is not appropriate. So there are a number of things that we can do for the remaining spouse.
Wow, yes. And that's something that I'm sure there's a lot of discretion and a lot of love and a lot of prayer and time that's put towards approaching that, because that can be a very difficult subject and a very difficult thing to even know where to start.
Sure. Remember always that shock is the first real thing that happens, and may take a while before it's appropriate to work with the grief recovery issue.
Absolutely. And so you started to tell us about one personal story. You have a couple stories that you would like to share. We have about 5 minutes left, so please tell us about some of your wonderful, wonderful people that you have worked with there.
I'll start with the high age and move down. How about that? 104, one of our ladies, every morning, she's there at 11 o'clock for dinner. A couple of years ago, she started using a walker, but she comes down from her room, is standing there in a group of people, and they're laughing and having a great time. 104.
104, wow. That gives us not a lot of excuse to say we're tired, huh? Sometimes you think about that, oh my goodness, I've only been here this many years, and I don't believe I met her when I was there, but I met one of the women that was 99 and still just spunky and ready to go and full of life.
Alice, my assistant, is 97. She was married in the church in the Wildwood in Iowa. If you've heard the song, Come, Come, Come to the Church, that's where she was married.
Oh my goodness.
And she wonderfully collects all the monies and helps the Chaplain's Fund so that we can buy the books and the things that we need to do grief recovery and all those different ministries.
Wow, and 96.
Each morning she gets up.
Still working.
She thanks God for her eyes, for her ears. She has a cup of coffee. And she goes about her day, and she doesn't take any medicine.
Wow.
97.
97 years old. That is incredible.
That's just something. Now, we had one lady. She was going to Disneyland on her 90th birthday.
Wow.
Which was last Monday.
Oh, my goodness.
She had a fall on Saturday. And so we were all going, oh, What a dashed hope of expectations. I came to the room and I said, oh, this is going to be a sad call. When I got in the room, there were 8 of her friends with Mickey Mouse hats on in the room. So Dottie did not go to Disneyland. Disneyland came to Dottie.
Oh my goodness.
In Psalm 41, it says that when you visit the sick, when you're sick, God will transform your bed of sickness.
Wow.
And to see the Bible happen in these scenes is so heartwarming.
Well, and it goes to show you the human spirit. We're all kids at heart, right? And
definitely.
That's so important to remember that age is just a number.
It is just a number. Believe me, when you speak with Alice, you might think you're talking to a 30-year-old. It's an amazing thing. And Gloria was the director of our plays. I want to give a special shout out for her. About 2 years ago, I asked her to direct A Christmas Carol, a play on Christmas generosity, the generosity of Christ, giving. She did such a marvelous job. I think she was making 20 or 30 phone calls a day. She was working at the time. She had a job, and she's making these phone calls to all the people that had to get together to put on this play. And one of the fellows said, I can't believe that you put on a play like that.
Oh my goodness.
So a special shout out to Gloria, my friend.
So they're still working, they're still contributing, they're still doing, they don't give up, they just keep going, right?
Yes, this is so true. And it's just an amazing thing to see their energy, the energy of life, and their love for Christ is so impressive and an inspiration to me as their chaplain.
And it's probably one of the things that keeps them going every day.
Oh,
absolutely.
definitely.
I know that even at my age, God, a lot of times when I wake up in the morning, He's the reason I keep going, and He's my encouragement and my strength and my salvation. And so I'm sure that that's a big part of why they're still up and functioning and moving and going every day.
It is. It is.
That is wonderful. And I have to tell you, I think it might also be a generational thing, but they are extremely resilient. And I remember all these ladies, all their hair was still curled and they still had their mascara on, and they're there with their pretty little scarves around their neck. And, it truly is so important to remember that they have done so much and to give them that love and respect. And so thank you so much, Chaplain Brad, for taking the time to do that and to work with our seniors. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here and share with so much of our viewing audience, and hopefully encouraging a few of you at home that whether it is that you need to go and potentially look at maybe moving into Fellowship Square or an organization like that, or maybe you just have a heart for the seniors and you want to learn a little bit and gain some of their wisdom, please make sure to reach out to them and go see them and visit with these lovely, precious people of God. We look forward to seeing you here next week on Joy in Our Town.